Alright, boys and girls, we have another tournament breakdown. This one is Lake Mackintosh, which, just like the last tournament, is another stretch that I have never been to before. But this time around, I did a little bit of map prep and identified a few areas that I wanted to fish. But just like the last tournament, I started a little bit late, slightly overslept. Lines in was at 6 or 6:30, I can't quite remember. I started around 7:30, so a little bit hour behind. Lost the morning bite, but it wasn't as late as the last one where I was a whole 2 hours late, which was good. It definitely was an interesting tournament. The plan was to fish a stretch of water and kind of hit these overhangs where there's a lot of brush piles, overhangs, things like that. As I made my way into this cove that I have found on the map that I was going to fish at, I had a feeling that it was going to be a popular spot, but I decided, why not? Just go for it anyways. Being that I'm in a paddle kayak, I don't have a motor, I don't have pedals, I can't cover as much water as possible, so I was going to focus my efforts into these three areas, which was this bank area that had a lot of cover, a lot of overhangs, knowing that it would be hot, knowing that the fish were either going to be out deep or they would be in cover, under shadows, things like that. So I decided to go with, they're going to be out under some cover, in some shadows. So I focused my areas all along this bank that had a lot of tree cover, a lot of things like that. The second spot was this cove that I found on the map. It was super deep, but it looked like it would be an area that I could comfortably cover and fish, where potentially I wouldn't be impacted by the wind as much. Not 100% correct on that one, but we'll get more into that later. And then this overpass that sits across the section of the lake that I was fishing. I was going to focus a little bit of time there where the columns are and see if I can catch anything. And the plan was the same as last time. I started with my ultralight rod. I had a mini tech tied on. The goal was to get a limit. It's a 10-inch limit for bass, so I can catch 10-inch bass on an ultralight. So I was tossing around a jackworm on a mini Texas rig for quite some time. After tossing that around for a little bit, I decided, hey, let's go with what caught us a fish last time, even though it wasn't the correct fish. A little Z-Man goby on a mule jig, and I threw that around for a bit, alternating between the two. So technically I was throwing two finesse lures at the same time, different profile, but still technically around the same size. And I think that was a mistake on my part. I should have not been throwing two alternating small lures. After doing that for a bit, I decided to switch gears and started throwing a swim jig. It was a bigger profile. I think it was like a 3/8 ounce swim jig with a big honkin' craw on the back. And I was hoping that this would lead to a bite, because maybe they wanted something big, meaty, not these small little lures that I was throwing at first. After tossing around the swim jig for a bit, not really getting a bite, I switched gears and took off the goby and tied on a mini chatterbait with a donkey tail as the trailer, in hopes that they would want to hit something moving and trigger a reaction bite. So alternating between the mini chatterbait and the jackworm, which the jackworm got a couple bites, but they just did not want to take the lure for some reason. I'm either thinking they were too small a fish, or they were bass that were just kind of mouthing on the lure. But my money's on that the fish were too small. They were probably bluegill or something. Hey, really quick, I want to talk to you about Fish Slaps. Fish Slaps is my sticker company. I launched it. It sells stickers. It's online. You can buy them. You can put them anywhere you want. You can put them on your kayak. You can put them on your tackle box. You can put them on your car. You can put them on your best friend. Stick them wherever you want to stick them. They're limited time only. Once they are gone, they are gone. You can buy them individually, or you can buy them in a 4-pack to save some money. So you can go ahead and go buy those. Fishlaps.shop. Go pick some up. Now, once I got into the cove, it was a lot different than I thought it would be, and this is why I feel like knowing the places that you're going to be fishing in tournaments is very, very important. For one, it had this huge rock wall that I wasn't prepared for, and I don't even know if fish relate to it, but it was there, and it was a thing, and it was a lot windier than I was expecting, so I kept getting blown around quite a bit. The difficulties of being in a paddle kayak without a rudder is that you're kind of at the subject of the wind. And I could have dropped my anchor at any point, to be honest, but my anchor is only like 20 feet. It only has a 20 feet of rope, and I think it got up to 25 feet in this area. So there's also some modifications that I want to make to my anchor, but that's for another video. At this point, I was pretty desperate and tied on a Bronco blade, hoping that anything would bite it at this point to get my confidence up. So I threw that around for quite a bit. I did get some short strikes. Again, probably bluegills, but not anything that would commit. Actually, strike that at one point I did have something on. I must have not set the hook right, or it only had right before the hook, because when it finally got close enough, the lure shot out and it was free. Now, probably my smartest move, but in my opinion too little too late, was tying on a wacky rig. I cut off the mini chatterbait, tied on a wacky rig, put on the I think it's the Pink Lemonade Swirl Yum Dinger, and started tossing that around underneath overhangs and casting into the shadows. This actually started getting hits and was boosting my confidence up, but nothing was actually taking it. I just kept getting little bites, and when I would go to set the hook, nothing was there, or it would just kind of feel like something was there and getting pulled out of something's mouth. So my money's on more small fish, bluegill, small bass. Not entirely sure, but it did help my confidence quite a bit. And then I finally decided to fish the overpass, and it was just way too windy underneath there. I couldn't really sit well enough, and I couldn't position myself well enough to where I could fish it effectively. This is a great opportunity for me to say, if you are a kayak company and want to sponsor the channel, I will happily take a pedal kayak. KK, please, thank you, because your boy needs it. After this, I finally started making my way back and fishing my way back towards the boat ramp. At this point, I was pretty demoralized and ready to sell my stuff for free 99 to anyone at the boat ramp who's willing to take it. In one more final act of desperation, I tied on the Donkey Tail Junior, and thinking any bass of any size will do to make me feel somewhat good about myself. And of course, what do I get? A little bluegill. Takeaways. I've learned very quickly that fishing a tournament requires a whole different mindset than just going out to fish. Some advice that I got from Ethan, our favorite ultralight angler from Fish Anything, who used to fish a ton of tournaments back in his college days, was to just leave the ultralight at home, and he's right. He said I need to focus on catching big bass and not bring the ultralight. That's actually the approach I took when I went to go practice, but we can get into that here in a bit. I have to focus on catching big bass and not give in to throwing the ultralight just because I want to catch anything. Like, that's not the reason why I'm out there. The reason I'm out there is for fishing bass. And if I'm wasting my time throwing something really, really small that's not a pure bass lure, those are casts that I could have been using throwing a bass lure, even if it's just like a wacky rig or an unweighted Texas rig. Even a full-size Donkey Tail would be better than throwing the Donkey Tail Junior or something else that's smaller that's gonna attract bluegill over bass. The other thing is practice. I am not at a point where I can just go to a place and start catching fish left and right. I'm not KVD. I'm not Jacob Wheeler. And that's what I did. A bit prematurely, I think, but I still think it was a good idea to go and practice at a lake that I will be fishing in a couple months. But I wanted to at least get a little familiar with the place, and that's what I did. I did mark a few spots, I did catch some fish, and hopefully these spots work out come tournament day. Because my hope is that next tournament we can get on the board, we can catch some fish. I've realized, and again, it's a common sense realization, that a lot of the anglers that I'm competing against are very familiar with the places that we're fishing, have been fishing them a long time, and are just all around better anglers at these waters. I do want to compete, but realistically, it's going to be tough out there to win with my current experience, with my current gear, and fishing against the people that I'm fishing against. They're all really good. Hopefully the skunk video breakdown isn't too boring for y'all. The whole purpose for me even showing this to you guys is so that you can see what it's like getting into tournament fishing. It's hard, it's frustrating, but it's totally fun. Even with all the frustrations and the disappointment, I've really been enjoying myself. So hopefully, if you're enjoying it, you'll stick around. I'm going to keep fishing tournaments. I have at least one more tournament this year that I'm going to fish, maybe two depending on scheduling. But either way, this has been really fun. Happy fishing, and God bless.